Great adaptation. Hey everyone, so I'm back and I honestly did not expect to be doing a video today because I didn't realize that Turtles All the Way Down by John Green was being made into a movie. My sister literally called me about a day ago and she was like, Heidi, the movie's on Max. The movie's on Max, you have to watch it. We have to watch it. And I actually ended up watching it without her. But today I'm going to do a video on Turtles All the Way Down, the book versus the movie. I'm going to give you a quick book review, quick movie review, and what I thought about the adaptation and the differences between the book and the movie. So let's go ahead and get started. So as far as the book review goes, I actually read this novel last year. It was the first time I read this novel. I actually included it in the top books that I read in 2023, and there's a good reason for that. I absolutely adored this novel. It was really hard to read for me, maybe as someone with anxiety. It was hard to see bits of myself reflected in Aza's character. But basically what this book is about is it's about a 16-year-old girl named Aza Holmes, and she has OCD and anxiety disorder. She and her best friend Daisy go and they try to find clues about what happened to a missing billionaire for a $100,000 reward. Well, it turns out Aza actually used to be best friends with the billionaire's son. So Daisy gets them to go on the son's property, and Aza actually ends up talking to him. You kind of get from there, you get a little bit about the mystery of Davis's, which is the billionaire's son. You get a little bit about the mystery of Davis's father's disappearance, but you also get a lot of friendship, and mainly what it's about is Aza's struggle with OCD and anxiety. And I really, really love this book because it was so in-depth and so emotional and so raw and so real. So this was a 5-star read for me, hands down. And I think it is a great book for people who struggle with anxiety or who struggle with OCD, and they can kind of just read about Aza's experience because I do feel like it is accurately depicted, and a lot of people agree with that. So the only thing that was kind of throwing me off in the novel was the fact that you get a lot. You have a lot going on in terms of plot. You have the mystery of Davis's dad's disappearance. You have Davis as a subplot, a romantic subplot. You have Daisy as a subplot and her friendship, and then you have this whole plot surrounded around the OCD and the anxiety. You have a lot of things going on here, there, and it really takes up a lot of your attention when you're reading the book, and it's such a small book that it's like, it's kind of hard to fit that much into such a tiny book. But it all made sense, but it was a lot at times because I'm not the type of person, I really like traditional plots, I really do. So the bouncing around for me throws me off, but it was still connected enough to where I was fully engaged and I was able to read the whole entire thing. All right, on to the movie review. So I watched this less than 24 hours ago, so it's still fresh in my mind, and I can give you guys at least an idea of what I felt about it, but I do have a lot of emotions about this movie, so I will try to articulate it as best as I can. The first thing that I'd like to start off with is the acting. The actors and the actresses in this movie were absolutely phenomenal. The main character, Aza, was played by Isabella Merced, I think that's how you pronounce her last name. She did so well. Like, she did amazing when it comes to encapsulating Aza's personality, her mental illness, everything. It was plain on the actress's face the whole entire time. She did so great. She did so great, and I absolutely loved her performance. I loved Daisy, which is Aza's best friend. She's played by an actor named Cree, and she did phenomenal. She absolutely, I think she was probably the best actress in this movie just because literally Daisy came off the page. She came off the pages of the book and turned into this actress. It was so great. It was amazing. And I really, really appreciated that. So there are a few things that I really don't feel like I can critique fairly just because I did read the book, so I already knew what was going on. One was Aza's mental illness. I don't know if everyone else who hasn't read the book was able to fully grasp Aza's condition, just because like you have this internal monologue and you have Aza going through all of these struggles, and I don't know if other people who haven't read the book were able to get that. And I'd love to hear what you thought if you haven't read the book but you watched the movie. Let me know in the comments comments down below what you thought and if everything made sense to you, because I'd be totally curious to find out. Just because I have read the book, and it would be nice to see it from an outsider's perspective, from someone who hasn't read it. Now, I can't critique how well people understood Aza's mental illness, and I can't critique how the plot went for other people who haven't read the book, because I understood everything that was happening with Davis's dad, but it did seem to me like there were a few things that kind of would have left a viewer confused, just because there wasn't a lot of exposition. Now, one of the things that I really did, completely jumping topics, like I said, I'm emotional about this movie, but one of the things that I really loved about this movie was the beginning. Like, you have this whole montage of Aza growing up, you have the montage of losing her father, you have the montage of going to camp with Davis, this camp where it's for kids who've experienced loss. I thought that was so great, and it's not a spoiler because it happens literally in the first 5 seconds of the movie, so don't freak out. But it was just so great. It really was. And they did such an amazing job with the montage. They did such an amazing job with the internal monologue for Aza. And they did such an amazing job for the characters and all of the complex relationships that they shared. Another thing that I want to mention is I don't typically cry for movies because, I don't know, I just don't get emotional when I'm watching a movie, even though sometimes I'd really love to cry. I would just love to cry it out when I'm watching a movie. My sister even says that I'm heartless because I don't cry when I'm supposed to when I'm watching movies. But this movie made me cry. There were certain points in this movie where I was just like a teary mess. And it was amazing because, like I said, I wanted to cry it out. And the acting, the emotions, everything was just like spot on. And so it all came together in this culmination of emotions, and I just let it go. And so I did cry for this movie, which is high praise for me because it's really hard to make me cry. But overall, this movie was amazing. I really think it showcased mental illness in a way that still shows the person while you're highlighting the mental illness without making it the main thing about that person. But you also get a lot of friendship. You have the romantic subplot. You have this family dynamic that you get to see between Aza and her mom. It was really great, and I absolutely adore the movie. Definitely 5 stars for me, same as the book. These last few things that I'm going to say, they're going to have major spoilers for both the book and the movie, so if you haven't read the book and you haven't watched the movie, don't go any further because I don't want to spoil it for you guys. Like I mentioned before, this was a really great adaptation, so there weren't a lot of differences that were so glaringly obvious where I'm like, oh, that didn't happen in the book. There were a couple, but they were so minor in terms of the story as a whole that it really didn't affect it. Now, the first big difference that I really noticed was the fact that Aza wanted to go to Northwestern. She wanted to go there because of a special professor who she absolutely adores. And in going there with Davis, she actually gets that talk of the turtles all the way down from the professor. Here, she had this whole scene where she hears it from the professor, feels this uplifting feeling, and then goes to kiss Davis. Afterwards, of course, having a thought spiral because of the bacteria that she just swapped. That's one difference that I did notice. It wasn't, like I said, it wasn't really huge. It didn't change a lot, and it was kind of nice to see Aza get some aspirations in terms of college and the future. The other thing, it isn't necessarily a difference, but more of a lack of information, is when Aza and Daisy are talking about Daisy's fan fictions, and they're talking about Ayala and how this character is just a way for Daisy to basically trash talk Aza. So you get that in the book. You absolutely get that in the book, but it almost felt like there was more to it than that. It wasn't just this way for Daisy to get all of her aggressions out. It was more, I feel like in the book they talked about how it developed into something more, and Ayala became a character that the fans actually liked. But I could be wrong. Like I said, I read it last year, but it felt like more than that. And not only that, but at the end, you get Daisy making these funny jokes with Aza about how, of course, Ayala has to die now, but she's going to have a hero's death. And that felt like the apology that I really needed, but we didn't get to see that in the movie. So it was a little disappointing for me, and it was a lack of information, like I said, but it's just a little omission, and it just made me a little sad because it did feel like it was necessary. Now, the last thing that I want to talk about as a difference is when Daisy and Aza actually discover Davis's dad. In the movie, they find a jacket, and they find a suicide note in the jacket, and it's the jacket that Davis's father was wearing. In the book, they are going through the tunnels and they smell something that's absolutely horrendous, and obviously it's like this rotting something that's smelling so horrible. They thought it was sewage at the first time that they smelled it, but it actually turned out to be Davis's father. That was a major difference, and I don't know why they decided to include the suicide note, maybe to turn Davis's father into someone a little more human rather than someone just leaving his sons. In the book, it wasn't really talked about what was wrong with Davis's father. In the movie, it almost made it seem like he had depression and he committed suicide. So I don't know how I feel about that. That's just something that I really don't know how I felt. Well, that's it for my book versus movie review and all of the differences that come with those two different types of media. I really, really, really enjoyed the book, and I really, really enjoyed the adaptation. So I think you should definitely read the book first, of course, and then watch the movie afterwards, because you always get more insight when you read the book and then watch the movie. 5 out of 5 stars for both. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, you can go ahead and subscribe, because I post videos like this all the time, especially book versus movie reviews, book rankings, all kinds of stuff. So you can go ahead and subscribe down below. If you want, leave me a comment. Let me know what you thought about the book and the movie. And if you watched the movie and didn't read the book, let me know what you thought about the movie down below, because I'd love to hear that. I really would. I want to know what your perspective of the movie was since you haven't read the book. But as always, I'll see you guys later.